So let me get this lined up. So if y'all haven't met me, I'm Joanna Scheit, and I'm the volunteer coordinator for Where Hope Lives. And this is Constance Meredith, and she's the Chief Programs Officer. And we are really the gatekeepers between you and becoming an advocate for someone. And, I just want to start out by saying before I turn Constance loose, that we are extremely protective over the residents. We are extremely protective over the clients. And their needs will always come before the volunteer or the advocate's needs, always. I also just want to say, as someone who walked into this program with no experience whatsoever, up with a background, Southern Baptist, growing up in the Deep South, never experienced any of anything that these girls and guys have gone through. It was a learning experience my first year. So nobody expects anyone to come on and just understand and be able to relate and all that. It can be very much a learning experience, but some people have just a great testimony and they can totally relate to what I call them, these kids, because I could be all of them's mom, if not their grandmother, are going through. But, it is a learning process. And we do show, thank goodness, a lot of grace, and a lot of grace with any, I hate to say mistakes, but challenges that you might have. But we will walk alongside you and be very, very quick to say, you know what, that might not be the right choice with that person. Let's talk this through. And, I told Constance from the very beginning when she introduced me as the volunteer coordinator at an event at the Dream Center, when I didn't know that I was the volunteer coordinator. But when she introduced me that way, I told her, I said, the one thing I ask is that you always be totally brutally honest with me. And, because I act out of emotion a lot of times. And if I say or do anything, you've got to tell me immediately. I don't want to hear, hey, a month ago you did this, or last year you said this. No, 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 no. I want it right then, quick, painful, and get it over with. So that's kind of how I am with everybody. Just on Tuesday with one of our volunteers, she went into one of the girls' rooms, and I just said, oh, hey, how are y'all doing? And went to Constance's office for a meeting. And when she came out, I said, we're not supposed to go in their room. She goes, I kind of wondered about that. But nobody's going to embarrass you or anything, but we will. I just believe in letting you know immediately if something's happened, or if there's a rule that you probably didn't know about, because I was ignorant my first 18 months. But during the volunteer orientation at 7, you're going to hear a lot about the rules and guidelines and stuff. But really, what we want to do right now is just kind of tell you a couple of things we expect from advocates. And so, Irene, this will be helpful to you, because if someone says, what are the expectations, I've got 5 pages of training for advocates that I can go through with someone when they become an advocate. But I just want to show you guys real quick. I want to share this. And this is something fairly new. It is can y'all see this?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. This is an advocate resident shared agreement. And this is basically what they agree to and what the advocate agrees to. And you both sign it, and then I get a copy of it. And that way they have a copy, you have a copy, I have a copy. So we have a record of what the guidelines are. And you can see the guidelines are very, very simple. It's nothing hard. It's be respectful of appointments that have been scheduled, give 24 hours notice if you need to cancel or postpone. Sometimes the residents, they might have their advocate meeting them and taking them to lunch on a Thursday, and they find out they have a court date. And these things happen, or they have a doctor's appointment that they got at the last minute. So they do have to know that they have to let their advocate know that. Not make any requests of my advocate in regards to finances or housing. And this is really important too, that that our residents know that the advocate is not there to be their Santa Claus. That can actually be harmful to the relationship sometimes. So because the expectations will change. So we just want to make sure that you don't think that you're supposed to be their Santa Claus. To understand that my advocate is here to guide, mentor, and be nurturing in my journey. And then again, the advocate agrees. The same thing, to be respectful, and if something comes up, and sometimes things come up, to let them know. Now, I have had an occasion where an advocate was on their way to the Dream Center and an emergency popped up, and they immediately called me, and I called the fourth floor and let them know. So, but there's a disappointment there if you're supposed to meet with your mentor and something happens. There's a real disappointment on their part. So we want to make every effort we can, short of, you know, bleeding and fire and death, to try to make sure that happens. You're also to focus on your residents' journey and how to best walk alongside them through the progression in the pillar system. And Constance is going to be talking a little bit about the importance of that. And then provide a safe, respecting the decisions of leadership. And, you know, this is super important, guys, because so many times when you get really close with somebody and they start telling you, you know, well, they did this and they did that and they made this rule and they put me on vest and did it. Believe me, there are not 2, not 3, but 10 sides to every story. And the, you know, the better comments to make, and of course we go over this when you go through your training, the better comment to make is, well, how could you maybe have handled that situation differently? Rather than, oh, you poor thing, they're torturing you. Because we're really not torturing them. Not very often, at least. Okay, so, but basically, this is the agreement. And so, you know, you'll just read through that. They'll read it, you know, you read it together so that you both understand what the guidelines are, and then everybody signs it. And that way, everybody's on the same page. So if you guys want a copy of that, I can email it to you. And then the other thing I wanted to show you real quick.
Joanna, can I comment on that real quick?
Yeah.
So I just want you guys to understand, because I know that some people are probably thinking like, oh my gosh, you guys are making them sign papers for us to be an advocate. It's about setting healthy boundaries. It's about saying like, hey, this is what a relationship looks like. These are just like the basic standards of a relationship that you would have anyways, and then with anybody else, you know, like what the do's and don'ts. And so this agreement is so that they see like, hey, this is what a healthy relationship looks like. If you're not going to make it to somewhere, you need to make sure that you're going to let somebody. If you have an appointment with somebody and something comes up, you need to be letting that person know like, hey, I'm not going to be able to be there. These are all great foundational stuff that they can be able to use to be able to have healthy relationships starting now and in their future. Sorry, Joanna.
You know, so many things, and I think you guys know this, but because by the time you become an advocate, you've worked with the kids a little bit more. But a lot of what we think is common sense or common courtesy, it's not that they're rude, it's that they never learned it. They honestly don't know it. And, you know, I had somebody miss an appointment with their advocate. The advocate called me. She said, I'm sitting here. They said she's not even here. So I chatted with the resident, you know, very soon after that, within 24 hours. And she said, well, I figured the caregiver would say she had an appointment. I said, but you don't understand. She drives 50 minutes to get there to be with you. And this light bulb went off, and she's like, oh, and I'm like, you know, they don't just magically appear. And so I think it's important, like Constance says, it's teaching healthy relationships, healthy boundaries, and kind of those common sense things. The other thing I wanted to, no, that's not what I wanted to show. Hang on. The only other thing I wanted to show you guys is an advocate summary. You guys, it is, are y'all seeing this advocate summary?
Not yet.
Okay, hang on. Click the wrong thing. There it is. Okay. It is imperative that every time you meet with your resident, every time, that within 24 hours you send me a report. And this is not to hold your feet to the fire or hold their feet to the fire or make anybody feel like we're micromanaging. It is accountability. It is keeping a record of you meeting with them, and how can we walk alongside that resident and help them with their needs and services in ways that we may not know. Because the way they are with our staff, at the Dream Center and the way they are with their friends and the way they are with their advocate, it will be 3 different types of relationships. And so it's really important that we hear what you are thinking and what you're seeing and how we can walk alongside them. So basically, it's pretty standard. It's the date of the meeting, the time, the location. If you go on off-site, if you're bringing anyone, it is imperative, you guys, that you let me know ahead of time, especially if they are of the opposite sex, because we have to know there's a screening process there. The confidentiality levels are very, very high, and the security levels are very, very high. So it's really important if you're going to bring someone with you. And also, you have to remember that they don't like to share. You know, if you're there to meet with them, they don't want to share you with your friend or your sister, or, you know, they really don't. They want that time for themselves. And so I think we just have to kind of keep that in mind. But if you have somebody that they're interested in meeting or whatever, like a child or aunt or uncle or whatever, just let us know ahead of time and let's figure out if that's going to work out for that person. And then the visit summary, a review of challenges and issues that need to be addressed, counseling or discussion relevant to follow up with the leadership, anything that you want me to pass on to Constance or Jay Sean and let them know, hey, you know, Susie has been expressing that she's having, you know, thoughts of da 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 da, and so we need to follow up with that. Action items, and these are things that you're going to be doing to support your resident. Now, a great example here would be Werner, which is why I have him on, and he would send a report and he would say, so, you know, he needs to get his driver's license, so I'm going to start teaching him how to drive. Okay, that's awesome. Sometimes I have people say, you know, they do want to finish their GED or their high school diploma, so we are working around what paperwork has to go in. That's great. It's setting those goals. And then who is responsible for the goals? So you've set the goals. Who is responsible for them? Don't enable them. Don't tell them, well, I'll go find this paperwork for you, or I'll go pick up this job application for you. No, 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 no. They have to empower themselves to take those next steps. You support them. You don't help them. Help means they can't do it themselves. Supporting them is you're walking alongside them. What are the deadline for the action items, the status, if you have something from the week before or 2 weeks before, and then whatever questions or needs you have for the leadership. And you email it to me, and then I send it on to Constance, and then I put it in a file in my documents that are secure, so that if we need to go back and look at something, we have that record. Do y'all have any questions about any of that so far before I turn Madam President over to you? Okay, I'm more of the administrative person. She's the heart. Everybody looks at us and they think, she looks tough, she's tall. And they look at me and go, she's wimpy. And then they realize the roles are definitely reversed. Okay, so I'm the pit bull. All right, Constance, what do you want to add?
Okay, so I wanted to, the reason that that document that Joanna had put out there is very important because it also mimics like their needs and services plan that they'll be doing at the Dream Center. So the program has been built into 4 different pillars. Each pillar that they have is about 2 months long. Some of them can fast track depending on where they're at. So when they come into the program, they're there for about 2 weeks, which is an orientation period for them to get acclimated and get used to being there. They're seen by our clinical services director, our medical services coordinator, and our manager to find out if this is the best fit program for them. Sometimes it's not the best fit program. Some of them have a higher level of care. We're kind of like in that medium level of needs. So there are some special needs that we can take care of, but then there's some that are a little bit more difficult where we'd have to find them another placement. Each pillar that they have, they'll go into for instance, first pillar is hands down 2 months. There's no fast tracking at a first pillar. And this is for them to be able to start doing the classes, them to get used to being able to wake up at 6:30 in the morning, going to making sure that they're doing their hygiene, they're doing their chore, and they're making it down to class. So this is the time where there's a lot of triggers that happen. Some people end up leaving classes because sometimes it's a little bit too much of heavy information that they can't handle. So they'll come upstairs, but the first pillar is a little bit more lenient and a lot more grace. During that first pillar, they have their needs and services plan as well. And it's on 6 areas of life: where you are with your substance abuse, where you're at with your family, where you're at with your anger management, where you're at with your relationships, just going over areas of their life, and then coming up with goals to be able to get to that next level, where you're at with your education. So the needs and services plan comes up with what the subject is, what the need is, and what we're going to do to improve it, who's in charge of it, and what's the time limit. So all of those things that you guys just talked, or that Joanna just talked about in like the advocate thing that the summary that you guys are going to be turning in, is exact same things that they're going to be doing. So how you guys come alongside of them is that you're going to talk to them about that stuff. Like, hey, where are we at with your needs and services? Like, where are we at with your pillar work? So you guys will be able to get like all of that stuff. We'll give you the pillar work. And second pillar is where things start changing. So second pillar is we start doing sample job applications. Some of them haven't even ever filled out a job application. They don't even know what it is. They're going to do a sample resume, and that could be even for them to go into school, like higher education. They're also doing like their journals. They're doing another needs and services plan. This one's a little more catered to, because we've now spent 2 months with this person. So we know some of the things that they need to work on at this point in time. And the advocates coming alongside, they'll also know of some things that they need to work on too. So second pillar is, and then before they move into second pillar, they have to have all this stuff completed. They would have had to have their certificate for coping skills, their certificate for anger management, their certificate for substance abuse, and they've been doing one-on-one counseling and group counseling for 2 months by this time. When they hit third pillar is very difficult. We call it perseverance, and we call it perseverance for a reason. It is where they're allowed to have their phone back. They have to be friends with, they're allowed to be on social media. So that means that they have to be friends with somebody that is a manager on property. And I can tell you, as soon as they get their phone back, it is a very difficult time, because they've had this time where they've had all everybody surrounding them and everybody coming alongside of them, and in a controlled environment. I don't know if you guys know, but social media is not controlled. It is insane right now. So you have all these friends that they had from before, family members they want to reach out to that they probably shouldn't be reaching out to, friends associated with other friends. So now you're dealing with a whole huge gamut. And trying to come alongside of them through that. We've had people lose their phones because of things that they're doing with their phones and going back to old behaviors. So it's how do you have a healthy relationship with your phone? This is where a lot of communication comes into play with the advocates, is being able to say like, hey, we need to have a conversation. We need to sit down, because if we're not all on the same page, I can promise you they will play us all against each other, hands down. And it's not that they're trying to do it. It's just because of the fact that if you're going to get away with something, you're going to keep doing it until somebody calls you out on it, until somebody actually has that healthy conversation of like, hey, we don't have to do that. We're here to help you. We're here to guide you to the next level. So how do we do that together? So it's very important. I've seen time and time and again where advocates have played staff against each other, and it doesn't work that way. And if there's a time where like something happens and we all need to sit down and have a conversation, we can all do that so that we're all on the same page. The whole goal is not to like really call them out and shame them. It's about, hey, we're communicating together because we have your best issue, or your best interest at heart. Third pillar is also when they're allowed to start going to school, where they're allowed to start where they're allowed to get a job. Mary, I know that most of this stuff doesn't really pertain to you because you're in a whole different ballgame. So Mary already pretty much has somebody, and all these things that she's hearing, like half of them are for her and then half of them are not. So just because she has a different advocatee. Is that the mentee? Is that what we call it? Yeah. So third pillar is where they're allowed to start doing all of that stuff. And again, it's very hard because they're allowed to now go out. They're outside of a controlled environment. They're having people come alongside of them to try and help them do the things that they're supposed to be doing. Fourth pillar is about transition. When they're in fourth pillar, and mind you, they're still doing needs and services every single pillar that they're in. The advocates will be able to see their pillar work. They'll be able to see some of the things that they're doing. They'll be able to talk to them about like their needs and services plan and where they're at. It's always a great goal to talk about, because sometimes they'll tell you guys things that they won't tell us because you're outside of the Dream Center. So you're outside of the circle of leadership, which is helpful and totally amazing. Fourth pillar is about transition and where they're going to go, if they're going to transition out, or if they're going to stay in the alumni program and stay on the Dream Center property for longer. Some people do. You can, baby. Sorry, guys. I have my kids here too. Some people do want to stay in the alumni program, and we're totally okay with that and being able to work through that stuff. For them to stay on property and have the safety and accountability Dream Center has to offer. They can stay there for up to 2 years. Afterwards, some people have stayed longer. I think we've had one person that's been there for almost 3.5 years. She's actually transitioning out right now, or by December. So, I mean, that's the longest that we've had somebody there, but it's very, so you can't put a level, or I mean, a time limit on trauma. You can't put a time limit on how long it takes somebody to heal. So sometimes they might be there longer, sometimes they won't. I will say that whenever somebody does leave, we've had a disconnect with advocates when people leave, because the advocates stay connected to them, and the advocates end up getting way invested, and I think almost, I don't know, 80 to 90% of them have had their heart broken because there was no accountability there. There was no communication with the staff members on what's really going on and how to handle different situations and what's going to happen when they're out of there. So if there's no connection to when you're at, if you do have a mentee that leaves, it's going to cause problems. So, I mean, I'm always willing to have conversations, and you don't even have to tell me who it is. I mean, I probably would know, but you don't even have to tell me who it is. I mean, if you want advice, or you want to, there's a situation that comes up and you want to be able to reach out to somebody and ask them what's going on, or what you would do in that situation. I mean, like, our ears are always open. And if Joanna doesn't know the answer, trust me, Joanna will call me. And she'll be like, Constance, this is what is going on. What do I tell this person? And then I tell her, she's like, this is what I want to say. And I'm like, well, this is what we should say. It's very nice. Joanna is right, 100%. She is the pit bull in the operation, and I'm more of the let's smooth it over and all be nice and hold hands and pray together. So that's just, has anybody got any questions about like the pillars and the needs and services before Joanna moves on to the next part? You're muted.
Thank you. I have a general question. If you are an advocate and you have a resident who leaves, Joanna, do people reach out to you to maybe be paired with somebody again?
Yeah, there's usually a gap of time first. It's very interesting. Like, okay, one of our advocates right now, she just told me she's ready to take someone on again, and it's probably been almost a year.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. It's hard. It's really hard, especially when you see somebody and you're working with them for so very long, and then they end up leaving. Like, it's heartbreaking. I can tell you, when I first started, I thought that I was going to end up in having to commit myself, because I mean, like, it was so hard and heartbreaking watching all of these girls that you're pouring so much of your time into and leaving. But I had to step away and be like, you know what, I have all these other girls that are still here, and that's where I need to focus my energy, is on the girls that are still trying. And I mean, like, I still pray for the girls that leave, but my main focus needs to be the people that are there.
And one of the things, I have had advocates reach out to me and say, oh my gosh, she left, you know, she's still calling me, she's still texting me. And I'm like, okay, so tell me what the nature of those phone calls and those text messages are about, because I don't care how much you love them and you, and there's respect and everything. If they need something, they're going to reach out to the person that they think is going to be their savior. I need money. I've had girls contact the Secret Sisters and say, you know, I don't have any clothes, I don't have any food, I don't have any money. And that's not true. It's pulling on the heartstrings. And I hate to say that would even happen, but desperate times call for desperate measures. And so that's where it's really important that when somebody leaves, even if it's they graduate or they move on or whatever, we kind of have to have that conversation about what is your relationship going to look like now and where to move at this point. So it's all, each one is individual. I did want to ask Werner. Werner has been an advocate and he teaches. Now he our girls, which that was a hair raiser for me, Werner. I was like, what? Teaching my girls?
Trust me, it's a hair raiser for me.
They're awesome. Don't you love them?
They're a lot more attentive and inquisitive and ambitious than the boys.
Yeah. They want a life. They want the house, the home, the job, the kids, they want it. Well, can you just share, because we are recording and we've got a lot of people who couldn't be on, can you just share, like, as a past advocate, someone who's worked with the guys, what were your learning points?
I'm not sure I'm the right person to ask that question since, let's see, 0 for 2, 1 for 2, half for 2, I don't know. It's obviously a rewarding process. Someone mentioned before teaching driving lessons. I've done that twice now, and I'll be honest, neither boy has his car or his license yet. So I just got a new car, so there's no more driving lessons in Warner's bad car. I got to find another beater to mess up. So, Joanna, what do you want me to talk about?
Just what was it like meeting once a week with your mentee, and what kind of things you did and what you talked about? Because your accountability was amazing.
Well, thanks. I typically met on Sundays because I do a full work week, and then I was teaching there once a week, so I didn't have a chance to get there during the week very much, but usually Saturdays or Sundays. Sometimes just as purely a social event, like going to see a movie or going bowling or something. Sometimes just be going out to lunch and asking them tough questions and receiving wimpy answers.
Mm-hmm.
But always pushing for better answers the next time around, right?
And follow up. You were really good at follow up. Okay, we talked about this. What have you done since? We talked about this. What have you done since?
And we gave Warner, just to be fair, guys, I know Warner's like, I'm 0 for 2, but there was a lot of things that the boys did accomplish. It's just Warner is one of those guys that he's like a no crap guy. He's like, you're going to get it done. There's no reason why you shouldn't be getting it done. So you need to get it done. I will tell you, Warner, one of them has some great news for you.
Okay. Which one?
Will, he just bought a car. So
I know. Remember, I was at the dinner with him and Taylor yesterday.
Oh yeah, that's right. That's right.
Yeah. He has no license, no insurance, and he bought a car.
Yeah.
And I told him, I said during our class, I said, look, you're going to buy a house one of these days, right? Yeah. Why don't you go out and spend your money buying a washer and dryer, just store it until you actually buy a house? It's the same thing. Ridiculous.
So obviously you can see that Werner does not swords at all. He shoots straight in the hip. But, and this is where, as you're working with the girls, as you're working with the guys, you kind of see where you fit with somebody and who you can relate to. And Irene, that's where we're going to need you, because if you see a personality match there or a personality clash, you got to keep me in the loop there too. So, but the main thing, guys, is being accountable. You have to be accountable to me. I need those weekly reports every time you meet with them. Now, if you're just happen to be at the Dream Center or you happen to be at church or something and you see them real quick, that's different. But, you know, the main thing that I learned the hard way is they do get very jealous. And so, like, I would come and hang out with all the girls and then take my resident off campus, and she wouldn't talk to me for 30 minutes. And I'm like, what's wrong? And she would say, you like them more than you like me. And I'm like, oh my word. So, you know, just to really make sure the focus is on the person that you're mentoring, you're there to be with. That's your date. Be with your date. So do you have any questions? No? Regina, do you have any questions? You're brand new to all this. You're going to have to unmute, honey. There you go.
This is definitely a lot of information. Not what I expected, but it's all good stuff. I think I just have a lot to learn. I think as far as questions go, I don't think we have that kind of time. Because I have a million questions. Like just thinking about this meeting, like for the past couple of weeks, like I think it's more, I just have to get in there and just see how things work.
Okay.
And then my questions will be answered.
Right. And you're going to stay for orientation at 7, right?
Mhm.
Okay. So you'll learn a lot there too. You think you have questions now? Maybe we'll answer them for you.
Okay. So one question I do have is I like, the whole one-on-one advocate thing and being a mentor. But are there opportunities to like work with like a group of girls?
Absolutely.
So one of the things that you will eventually learn about me is I am never short of words. I'm a talker. So I think I kind of fall into like this just natural comfort with ministry and outreach. And I love the gospel, because who doesn't? I mean, come on, it's a manual for life. And also, I'm a very creative, artistic person. And with my own kids here, we're constantly making things and doing all kinds of DIY projects, which I think would be awesome to do with the girls at the Dream Center.
Yeah. And that's part of the process of getting to know them, is coming in, hanging out, doing things with them. And then if you do find that you click with somebody, you can say, okay, I think the Holy Spirit's leading me to be with this person and to really walk alongside her. And that may not happen. It may be that but that your work is going to be with the entire group so that you can mentor a lot of girls. We'll see. It's a process. That it's not like I'm applying for this and that's what I'm going for. It changes all the time, doesn't it, Irene? On a weekly basis. It's like teaching middle school. You never know who's going to show up in the same body.
No. Yeah.
It's a very dynamic atmosphere, ever changing. Okay, well, if we don't have any more questions, it is 6:37, and I wanted to kind of give everybody a break. I want to get my recording and everything.
Can I ask a question?
Sure, Mary.
Joanna, I know my situation's different, but just overall, you said when we were going over the rules that we're not supposed to meet with the girls in their room. Is there a meeting place we're supposed to be using?
So Mary, the reason why we said that, I'll take that one, Joanna. So the reason why we say that they're not supposed to meet in the room is because we want you to develop a relationship first.
Okay.
And your situation is different because you've already developed a relationship. You've been coming for a while and she already knows you. So
Okay.
The reason why we say not to meet in the room is usually because there is a roommate, but we can always work out a spot for you guys to go meet if they do have a roommate. Because the last thing that we want to do is have the other girl feel uncomfortable or feel like she has to get kicked out, or the girl that you're mentoring to feel I don't know, jealous, I guess is the word to use.
Yeah, I understand.
Yeah. So I mean, like, you have been coming for for a while now.
Yeah.
So I'm like, if she has a roommate, then we can work it out. But we just don't want the roommate to feel like we have to make her leave so that you guys can spend time. We'd rather get you guys a place to be able to hang out. There is 2 common areas on our floor. There's the wellness center and the kitchen. The wellness center is getting remodeled, but it should be done this weekend. So there should be that place for you guys to meet.
Okay, so but in the meantime, is it okay to meet in the room as long as we're not interfering with the roommate, or would you prefer that I meet with her in the kitchen? Because it's on Tuesday.
So it should be done by Tuesday. They said that
Okay.
This should be done this weekend.
Okay.
We're hoping. I mean, they just brought all the furniture and stuff in today, so it should be done.
Okay, so we should be meeting in the kitchen or the wellness center?
Yes,
Going
if
forward.
she has a roommate. If she doesn't have a roommate.
She does. She has a roommate.
Okay, yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And that gives you a neutrality there too, neutral spot.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well,